I ain't here for the money, I ain't here for the fame, though it might be nice to own a jet plane.
Hi guys, two videos, one weekend. I already explained in the last one why. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more in this one about what I've been doing this weekend mainly, although the weekend's actually only just started. For me it started yesterday because I decided to take a day off and do something fun, and I actually went out and did some beekeeping. Now that came about as follows. About 2 weeks ago, I think it was 2 weeks ago, a friend of Dave came and visited here in the place where I live, and he came by and we had a little chat, and he was telling a little bit about what he does, and I told him a little bit about what I did. And then just before he left, he actually mentioned the fact that he's also really big into beekeeping and that he's a beekeeper and all that stuff, and I was like, well shit, this is a really beautiful opportunity. He's a really nice person, and I'd love to learn some more from him about beekeeping, because I started doing some beekeeping last year and I got my certificate or whatever you want to call it for beekeeping. And I said to him on his way out, I said, yeah, would you mind if I came along and checked out your beekeeping or your bees at some point? Let me know this, what, or this, that, and the other. And he sort of said, yeah, just make sure to get my number through Dave, and then we'll get it set up. Now, I came back from Wellington, so I'd worked the whole weekend, so I figured it would be okay for me to have at least a day off because I'd lost another weekend working. I asked Dave about a week or so ago, hey, would you mind flicking me the number of your friend? And I'll give him a quick app and see, or a quick message and see if he's up for it. So I flicked the message over to him and said, hey, what you doing Friday, yesterday for me? How's that? How are you doing? What are you going to be doing? What are you going to be up to? Would you mind if I came by and checked out the bees? To which he said, oh no, you're more than welcome to. Just be there in the morning. If you want, you can even hang out the night before if that suits you better, like try it travel wise. I said, nah, I'll be fine. So I went there yesterday morning at around, I think I arrived there at around 8 in the morning, 8:30 in the morning approximately, yeah. And I went to his house, and there's a little sidestep because again I'm reading off the list of what the things I'm allowed to talk about to limit the video. But he has probably the most premium spot where he lives ever. He lives on this piece of land with 30 acres around him, so that's like 13 hectares, he said to me. And it's got this really nice little, it's a very interesting little house. It's super simple, but very accessible. Like, it's got everything you need, big windows, really pretty. And then there's just fields around him with a couple of his animals, because he owns some sheep and some cows. Just, I don't know exactly actually why he breeds those. I didn't ask that, but it's not relevant. And he has this view out of over this lake. Again, obviously, me being the great photographer that I am, I did not take any pictures of that. Really great. And he looks out over Lake Taupo, which is really, really pretty because you can see the entire mountain range in the background whenever it's not cloudy, obviously. It was a bit cloudy yesterday, so you couldn't completely see it, but you can see the entire mountain range in the background, and you can see the lake, and there's only forest around him. So to his house, it's approximately, I think it's like 1.5 kilometers from the actual road to his house, which is just like a little green path, and the only neighbor that's there is like, I don't know, 500 meters away, and there's a little neighbor there, a little neighbor house, and that guy's got an even prettier house because he's up a little bit higher, so you could plant really massive trees in front of his house and he could still look at the lake. So he's got the prettiest house. So yeah, but still, nonetheless, that's a really pretty house and a really pretty view. So I went there in the morning, and we sort of had a little bit of a chat, and at some point he was like, right, let's do it, let's go to the bees, let's check out the bees. So we drove out to one of his locations where I think he had about close to about 16 hives there, I think it might have been. I'm not actually exactly sure how many it was, but it was around 16 hives, I think. So what we would do is he had like pellets with 2 hives on each pellet, and then he would check the one hive and I would check the other hive. We'd do a quick report, like what, because you always have to sort of go through it and see if there's brood, actually it's called, in there. I didn't know that either. I just knew the Dutch words for all of these terms, so I've been learning very quickly yesterday. At least I tried to learn as quickly as I could yesterday what it was called. So there was brood actually in. You have to check for that to see if the queen is actually active enough, because we're coming just out of winter here, so we have to see if the queen's alive and if she's actually actively making new bees. Because if she isn't, then either she's not there or dead, so she might have just disappeared, or she's died, or something else is going on, which can be pretty much anything, because that's sort of like the interesting thing when you work with bees. There's a trillion and one things that can happen. They're extraordinarily versatile, so you always have to be able to sort of adapt to whatever they're doing as well. So yeah, so I actually got some experience there, because during my beekeeping certificate time, I didn't have as much experience with it as I wanted to, and that also had to do with the fact I was super busy at uni at the time. But the cool thing was, nonetheless, that I actually did get a really massive chance to sort of now go through the bees very elaborately. So we went through all the things, all of the hives. I saw the whole process of how he does that and what he looks at, because we also had to look at varroa, which is an sort of infestation that bees have to deal with. They're like little mites, like really small little red, like I'm showing at this size, but they're even smaller than that, and they actually sit on the backs of bees, and that's a problem, because they destroy the larvae of the bees, which can cause deformation in the wings and several other problems. So he was looking into if the varroa was actually still there, and he was using a very interesting varroa technique to sort of deal with the varroa. So we were looking for that as well. So there was a whole process, and it was really cool to experience that, because I'd really wanted to sort of get into something like that whilst I was here, obviously. So it was really cool that I got that opportunity. I was obviously a little bit slower than the beekeeper himself, obviously, because, well, he's been doing it for 7 years. I've been doing this for a year, but I've got, about half an hour of experience before I came over here. Obviously, well, that's not true, not half an hour, but I've got very minimal experience here on that, and he's got about 7 years of experience. So he's been doing this fanatically. He's got 150 hives, and he's still not big enough. He says he wants to grow to about 350 at least, to sort of be able to do what he wants to do with it. So yeah, it's massive what he's doing. So his experience is like light years ahead of where I am. So it was a really, really cool experience, and I got stung only once, which was pretty good, because he got stung 3 times, so I only got one, which is also kind of good, because I also figured out that I'm not allergic, because I didn't actually blow up in any kind of way. My face didn't swell up, although it was in my hand, and he did actually say to me, well, the biggest test is if you get stung in the face. Pardon me, because if you get stung in the face and you don't swell up, then you're pretty much not allergic, although there have been cases of people being allergic 30 years of beekeeping, and then suddenly one day they walk in and they just bloat up and they have to go to hospital because they're suddenly allergic. The reason for that is no idea, because nobody actually knows, to my knowledge, but I might be wrong on that, so I might have to research that still. So yeah, that was really cool. And after we did the beekeeping thing, we went back to the beekeeper's house, which is a little bit further away than from where the hives were. We did some chores in the meantime, and we had a pizza, and he actually gave me a jar of the honey that comes from the bees that we'd been working with that day, which was really, really nice, and a really kind thing to do. And currently the camera is actually standing on that jar of honey. So then we had a bite to eat, and then we went to walk through that forest, which is right next to his house. And again, me, the photography genius, did not take along the camera to film that walk and to have cool footage for you guys. Instead, I decided to just go for the walk, which obviously I really have to start thinking of that. And yes, that was my Friday, and that was super, super fun, and a lot of fun to do, and it was a really nice way to sort of unwind from all the business in the last couple of weeks. And it was very enjoyable, and we had a lot of fun, a lot of chats, and was something which was a really cool last little thing to say as well, as we went for the walk, and during the walk we actually met an older man, I think he was in his 70s, I think he said, who was mountain biking through the hills with a not electric bike, at the age of, I think he was in his 70s, he said. And I was like, whoa, that's crazy. But the cool thing about it is, and I think that's really something which you might not experience in the Netherlands as easily, although you might, depending on the situation. We literally ran into him, and the beekeeper wanted to show me the whole view, so I went to have a look at this, because it's a phenomenal view. And I sort of came out of the forest with him, and we saw this guy, and we just made a chat with him, and we just had we had a little conversation. And that was quite interesting. Like, we just walked up there, had a whole conversation, but the stuff that we talked about Like, everybody knows everybody here, and that's just the most fascinating thing ever. And with 4.5 million inhabitants, literally everybody knows everybody here for some reason. So it's got a very interesting, being a part of something bigger vibe to it. So yeah, that's something I thought was pretty cool. That said, that was my Friday. The rest of the weekend still is to sort of come, and I don't exactly know what it will hold. I'm yet to experience it, and I've got a busy weekend ahead with thinking about all the stuff with regards to my internship. So I'll be busy anyway, nonetheless. I hope everybody back home is doing fine. I hope everybody is having a good time and slowly but surely enjoying the transition of the seasons, because the heat obviously had been a serious thing for quite a couple of weeks. As I said in the last one, everybody's been messaging me a lot this week, so I've had a lot of fun having contact back with friends back home, which is really nice. And that sort of leaves it for this week. As I said in the previous vid, I don't actually know what else to ask you guys in the meantime as a question, so I'll just stick to this, which means if you do have comments about the video still, or if you want to see something else, or if you have questions to me, please ask them. Do that down below. Leave a like if you want to. Subscribe if you haven't. Make sure to click the bell button to get notifications for whenever I pop out new videos, which I try to do every week, although it's not worked out every week so far. I'm at least making sure that I pick up by doing 2 videos in the weekend once I've missed the weekend. Until that time, thanks for watching and see you in the next one. Bye!